If you have not read In Memoriam, I beseech you to pause this podcast and order it.
I mean, Stoner is absolutely insanely brilliant and so underrated.
It is incredibly moving. I tabbed it to within an inch of its life.
But the Babysitters Club special, when they were on Camp Mohawk, I mean, it's life-changing, and let's leave it at that.
And because I was so connected to these characters who are brilliant and they are fleshed out, they walk amongst us, that I was literally pacing through going, oh my God, has anything happened to them?
Hello, I am Sophie.
And I'm Chaya, and welcome to the Bibliophiles podcast, where we look at life through books.
Well, it's great to be back.
It's great to be back, but you have been, no offence, driving me mad at all hours of the night, and I would like to make a public service announcement that no one should watch the programme Sophie is watching because it will turn you feral.
I have actually finished. I've been watching Tell Me Lies on Disney+. I've got to tell you, this programme is possibly the most addictive show I have watched in years, and I've not been able to sort of think, talk, or do anything else other than watch it at any opportunity, which, as you know, is very, very unlike me.
And this is so you, babe, because the highest brow of reader, the lowest level of trash TV. No offence, as in, you got me into maths, Married at First Sight Australia, which I found, MAFSA, apologies, which I found, I mean, it was Shakespearean levels of drama. And that's what we do as friends, don't we? We influence each other. And today's topic is friendship through books, and some of the books that we have read that feature friendships that either have changed us or made us think about our own friendships differently, and that point about chosen family and community.
And I love the title, which is Red Flags and Ride or Dies on Friendship in Fiction. It's a good one.
It is a good one.
It's a good one. Just to touch upon my fascination with Tell Me Lies, because if you are watching it or have watched it, you'll know there is a huge amount of sex in the program. Like, it's not the kind of thing that you can even risk one of your little kids stumbling upon. Like, every moment you're like, oh my gosh, okay, just better make sure they're not around. However, the story is fascinating. It is actually a book, which I haven't read, by an author called Carol Lovering. And what I find, firstly, I find the dynamic between the group of friends that become lovers, then enemies, absolutely gripping. But also it's set in, I think it's around 2000, early 2000s, when Facebook has just started, when I think no one has an iPhone, at least to start with, but when one is introduced, it's like the most exciting thing ever. So they're all on Blackberries, and it's just very much of a time, I'm showing my age here, that I can relate to when I was at university. And I think that aspect of their friendship really grabbed me, and it just made me think about how friendships have perhaps been transformed by things like social media, by the connectivity that we have online, and obviously it's just brilliant as well.
It's so interesting because in reality, and I think about this often, we are more connected than ever and people are feeling more isolated than ever. And one would think that with the amount of social media and the amount of the ability that we have to be in touch at the drop of a hat, we would feel more in commune with each other than ever before. But in reality, the algorithms that we live by have almost made this a competitive feature. People say things to each other online they would never say to face to face. And people are so lost at the moment, don't you think?
I think so, because part of it, I think there are lots of positives and there are real connections that can be made. But I think across this landscape online, a lot of it isn't actually real human connection. It's almost like a veneer of connectivity and connection that's not giving us the benefits that you get from real, true friendship. And I think that's why I find this topic, friendship in literature, so interesting, because in fact so many of the books that I've read and loved are about that dynamic, and those books create such memorable characters. And I think in the books that we've got here today, a lot of those characters are not ones you would easily forget whatsoever.
Absolutely. And I think books have that ability to create connection. You always feel like you've met a kindred spirit if they love a book as passionately as you did.
Hi,
hello.
here I am.
I always feel that when I'm reading, I'm never alone because I'm surrounded by characters from someone else's imagination, particularly with novels. And they become your friends almost. And I think we're going to play around with this today because there obviously human connection features in basically most books. So we could have come here with a whole roster of books, which we have, but there are one or two that we are going to really focus on whilst also giving lots of other recommendations, but there will be some in-depth discussion on some of our faves.
And actually, you say that, and I do agree, obviously human connection is key to many, many books, but some are definitely stand out where that is kind of the center. Because I think with a lot of books where it's much, much more heavily plot driven, the dynamics, the intricacies of certain friendships, that's perhaps not the priority. Whereas I think in the books that we've brought here today, it's that aspect that is kind of what stays with you. Certainly what stayed with me about these titles.
Well, if you think about it, Sex and the City was a show about 4 women and everyone identified with one character and everyone was transfixed by their friendship group.
Absolutely.
And I think we talked about this, that romance and romantasy has obviously been overtaking bestseller lists and the consciousness of people and the connection that people choose to themselves and the friendships that they cultivate really has such an important place in people's lives beyond the romantic connection. I always think, like, God forbid, if anything happened in my marriage, like, I would still have my friends. And that to me is such a balm and such a comfort.
Absolutely. And I think it's also one of the ways, I suppose, in which we've tried to organise these titles is along the lines of almost when and how you make your friends in your life. So we're going to be going through the formative years and then moving on past that. So when you get into school, the campus novel is surely a kind of
absolutely.
an element of this genre, or however we're looking at it. That's absolutely key for friendship, which is why I find Tell Me Lies so fascinating, because it is a campus novel essentially playing out on screen. But then you go into adulthood, and what I love is some of these books, you've got lifelong friends and their lives together, like Eleanor Ferrante, I know that's a pseudonym, but her Neapolitan novels go from, I think, age 6 through to later into adulthood. And we try to organise the books like that because actually looking at them within these time frames reveals so much about the relationships that we have in our own lives and maybe seek to develop as well.
Absolutely. And I you know, the formative years, I mean, there's so many red flag or ride or dies because one does not really choose your friends. It's such a question of where you've been raised, which families are around you, who's in your school.
Parents can certainly engineer it for convenience, absolutely.
What autonomy do children have?
Well, my oldest friend from my entire life, we are friends because our parents double booked a babysitter when we were a matter of weeks old. And that friendship has stayed the same, but we had no choice in actually making it. So we've got some great formative years.
We've got some great ones. And I think if, you will have recommendations across the span of genres because that is what we pride ourselves on. We've had so many lovely messages from people saying, I've tried a book outside of my comfort zone from the first few episodes of your podcast. So we've got some gothic novels that have friendships at campus stage, and we've got some beautifully moving novels, and we've got a few thrillers, and we've got obviously a fantasy because God forbid we don't have a fantasy. We've got a classic. We've got historical fiction. We've got everything. The first book that I have to mention is The Kite Runner. Which I think I would group together with Playground by Richard Powers and Recitatif, which is the one I actually also want to talk about because I feel like The Kite Runner is very, very well known.
Of course, and a massive, massive film. I mean,
I think I saw it on the stage, actually. I think there was also a production.
I didn't know that.
So, The Kite Runner is that book to think about where you've got an incredibly important context in terms of the story, and you've got a friendship that is the golden thread going through that novel. But Toni Morrison is an author that I think everyone should know about, and I hope I'm saying this right, Recitatif is the slimmest of books. I mean, if I hold it, it almost looks like a novella. And it is the story of Twyla and Roberta, who have known each other since they were 8 years old, and they were thrown together as roommates in a girls' shelter. Inseparable, they lose touch as they grow older, only to meet again at a diner. What I think is fascinating about this is their races are ambiguous throughout.
Really?
Yes. We know that one is white and one is black, but which one?
You don't know which one?
No. And who is right about the race of the women the girls tormented at the orphanage? So,
And nowhere can we conclusively know.
No. It's a masterful exploration of what keeps us together and what keeps us apart, of race and relationships that shape our lives. And I think if anyone is looking for a slim classic with friendship at its heart, which it is, and it plays into so many important themes, you can pick up a classic which will take you. It's a read in one sitting. It is.
I want that. I want that. I love a read in one sitting.
It is a novella.
That's
I mean,
podcast.
I think it's 30. I think it's under 50 pages.
Oh, wow.
And it's beautiful. Do you actually want me to give it to you now? Will you give it back to me? As she says, having stolen Sophie's books. Playground is another one by a Nobel. He's a Pulitzer winner, isn't he?
Prize winner.
And you wanted to mention Prep.
Yes, I do. So I have become, in fact, what's funny is I would say there are two authors that since reading together, although they haven't come through you, but since we have read together and maybe been more aware of like reading online, they're definitely authors who I've only recently discovered. Curtis Sittenfeld.
I love her.
Who I love. And I know everybody has loved her for years since The American Wife and whatnot. And also Meg Wolitzer, who you know I have like a bit of an obsession with. So Curtis Sittenfeld, her book Prep is actually her debut. And I had no idea. I just read it quite recently. And what's so fascinating about this book is it's set in a boarding school. And it's a student, she's 14, Lee Fiora. She's from a small town in Indiana, and she gets a scholarship at Alt, which is a boarding school, very, very prestigious. And she gets there, she doesn't quite fit in. What's really interesting about this book is that it's this dynamic of being in your early teens in a boarding school, which I personally can't relate to, but it's that part of your life where you're carving out new friendships, new relationships. I mean, when you read the Goodreads reviews on this, most of them say the same thing, and there are many, many reviews. What is so incredible about this book is how it takes you back to those moments when you were 14 years old, you had your first crush, you are feeling it. It is exactly as it was at the time when you fancied that boy and he wasn't looking at you. You maybe tried to get to your lesson differently so that you might bump into him. And then there's also the aspect of, being away from your parents. And she makes this really, I guess it's quite a profound and beautiful point that with boarding school, you have to leave your parents over and over again.
Wow.
Whereas when you go to uni, it's more expected of you. So this is about not really fitting in, because that's the point. Lee doesn't really fit in. She's come from a very different place to the other students around her. And I think a lot of people can relate to friendship in that way of sort of being on the outside and trying to maneuver your way into something that traditionally hasn't been open to you. And related to this is Meg Wolitzer's book, The Interesting.
Oh my God, you loved this book.
And I don't actually have it. I have like another Meg Wolitzer here just because I like to have her near me. She is a ridiculously amazing writer. Have you read any Meg Wolitzer?
I think I read the Female
I feel
Persuasion.
like The Female Persuasion is very you. The Interestings is set in an American summer camp, which as a concept is quite foreign to me, certainly.
Yes.
Sending your children, I think they go as young as age 8. For about 8 weeks over the summer. And I think as a parent, you can drop by for like an afternoon and that's it. So these are teenagers at a very creative, artsy summer camp. And they make this vow that they're going to do something interesting with their lives. They call themselves the Interestings. And I love the intensity because if you think about it, a group formed at a camp, that's very different to a school as a setting. And what you see is they come to camp almost level. As children, we don't think about what makes us very different when we make friends. We're all kind of, at least to our childhood eyes, living similar lives. We go to the same school or we're on the same camp. But as their lives progress, their fortunes change, and some of them just become stratospherically successful, others less so. And you see how they fulfill that promise of being the interestings. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's a novel with a group at its heart. And I find friendship groups perpetually interesting.
Yes.
Maybe because I actually feel I don't have a core group. I have lots of friends from many different places. So seeing it play out in literature is very interesting to me.
I am the most important friend.
It goes without saying.
Okay,
Here we are.
great. I mean, it's interesting because I do have a group of friends. There are 4 of us. And so I do, and we've been friends. I mean, the pictures that we have of us from when we were 14 should be burnt.
We could have put them behind here.
Awful.
I'm sure they would have loved it.
I have one eyebrow. Why did my parents think that was okay?
I think a lot of us did.
I had one eyebrow. My hair was straightened from like centimetres off my scalp, so it went out and
It's
down.
a look.
Anyway, and I always kind of place us in the books with groups of friends. Talking about a camp novel, I think that Taylor Swift made this title go massively
I haven't read
viral.
it.
This is The God of the Woods. For any thriller lovers, which I have to say I'm not, but I found this utterly fascinating. The God of the Woods by Liz Moore is set in the Adirondack Mountains.
Can you say that again?
No. And it takes place in a summer camp. And I don't think friendship is not at its heart, but it made me think, because we were talking about summer camps, it was such a good one for anyone who's looking for a thriller recommendation. I'm not going to give anything away.
I love a camp vibe.
There's like a missing child and then a second missing. It's very, very good.
Can I just say, though, related to camp, and this is not a book that we talked about before, but I'm going to bring it up anyway because it's so appropriate. Okay, hear me out. The Babysitter's Club. The Babysitter's
Never read
Club.
it.
Oh my. Okay, I was addicted to these titles when I was little, and I'm not going to explain it because if you know, you know, but the Babysitter's Club special, when they were on Camp Mohawk, I mean, it's life-changing, and let's leave it at that. But it's a camp vibe. There is something about these books on
It
camp,
is something about
and friendship, and what happens on camp stays on camp.
Yes.
American Pie, like band camp. I mean, it all goes down on camp. Like, let's be honest. But that is why
This
these
has taken
books
a
are camp
turn.
vibe. But no, I think it's they are formative experiences.
They are formative. And actually, my children were watching a film called Wonder. And
What a book and what a film.
And it made me think, okay, so I bought this book, which is Almond, in a gorgeous, gorgeous, like, bookshop, which is also a coffee shop.
That's a beautiful cover, but it's not dissimilar to the Wonder cover, which is blue, but with the face.
Interesting. And this is about Yunjae, who was born with a brain condition that makes it hard for him to feel emotions like fear or anger, and he doesn't have friends, but everything changes when a shocking act of random violence shatters his world, leaving him alone. And he retreats into silent isolation until a troubled teenager arrives at school. So it is incredibly moving. I tabbed it to within an inch of its life. And I just think it's very, very original. And it's got, I mean, the Wall Street Journal called it incredibly bold stories that you can take anywhere. But this is such a formative year, like, friendship story.
A book like that, and I would say a book like Wonder, you said your kids are reading Wonder. So mine did too. And I think what's so important is how much a child or young person can learn from a book like that, because whatever makes the child in the story the outsider, they learn not to basically, these kids are often being bullied, and it shows how you should treat people. And just because somebody has a disfigurement in Wonder, a facial disfigurement, it shows actually just, this is, it teaches children how to be and how to behave in situations that could make them maybe feel uncomfortable or not know what to say. So they're actually hugely important on that level as well.
I know. And we come to a title that we're going to discuss in a bit more depth, because I could talk about this book for hours. In fact, when we interviewed the author Alice Winn about her debut in Memoriam, Sophie and I just gushed at her. But do you know what? It makes me think, because this is a really a good book for the in-between. It's in-between formative and campus. And I think when I think about university, before we get to Memoriam, I do think about coffee, because that's the only way that I survived cramming for exams, because Sophie, being the good girl that she is, obviously would work. You know, not that we were friends or knew each other in university, but I'm sure.
Would we have been friends?
No. We actually would not be friends because I was cool and you're a nerd. Even though I'm a Lord of the Rings fanatic, but I'm a cool nerd. And you would do your,
I need that on a t-shirt.
You would do your essays, like I'm sure weeks and weeks in advance.
I'll tell you my problem is that I did work very hard, but I really didn't like coffee. And what I did when I was desperate was I took Pro Plus, those caffeine pills, which are not good for you. I actually only got into drinking coffee after I had my third child, because I suddenly realised that I just wasn't able to function like a human in any acceptable way when he was a newborn. So that's when I started drinking coffee.
And you are enjoying a brand that we are now working with.
Yes, we are.
London Nootropics, adaptogenic coffees, and
Hence
it means that you can be up till 3 a.m. watching Tell Me Lies and still function without 7 cups of coffee.
Yes, I have found that the sachets are absolutely brilliant. So I have one in the morning and I don't get jittery in the afternoon. I really like Flow, which has lion's mane in. It's been really helpful to me. And what's great is it still has coffee in, it still has caffeine in for those people who may not realise that, because I wasn't sure. It definitely does, but it just has a couple of adaptogens inserted, like lion's mane, which give you this extra buzz, but without the jitters that often come mid-afternoon for me when I feel like I need to have another cup, and I don't.
It optimises the caffeine.
It does.
And we have a code, which is Biblio. Do check them out, because I mean they're all over the place. Howard Selfridges, they look very luxurious.
They do.
And I mean it has changed your life.
It has. So londonnootropics.com, that's where you'll find them.
And what's better with a nice cup of coffee than a good book? And
the perfect book, possibly.
If you have not read In Memoriam, I beseech you to pause this podcast and order it, because I actually found it life-changing.
We're not going to spoil it. I mean, I'm worried we might slip. But there is a massive... Oh, when I think about the moment when there is the twist. Like, often I find in a novel, you can see the twist coming or you know what it is. I was on a train and then you discover the moment. The person next to me was like, are you okay? This book is life-changing. World War I, 2 best friends, Gaunton Elwoods, in a boys' public school. I mean, the structure is brilliant. You loved the newspaper articles peppered throughout, didn't you?
So I found the experience of reading this book. You know when people say books are transportive? It took me to another time or place. It didn't just do that for me. I actually felt the anxiety and the panic that people must have felt racing through the newspapers to see if their loved ones had made it. Interspersed in the chapters are newspaper articles from this school in which they talk about the fallen. And because I was so connected to these characters who are brilliant and they are fleshed out, they walk amongst us, that I was literally pacing through going, oh my God, has anything happened to them?
I mean, it's literally page 1. Because I think it conveys really beautifully how this goes. So, balancing the prosciutto on his knee as he turned the page, Gaunt finished reading the last In Memoriam. He had known 7 of the 9 boys killed. The longest In Memoriam was for Clarence Roosevelt, the older brother of one of Elwood's friends. It's just, this information is just peppered throughout. And to think that these boys are reading these papers and this is how you learn if your family friend died, or this is very true to its time.
Absolutely. And the friendship and the groups and the camaraderie and the banter is second to none. Alice Winn was reading through these newspapers. So it is so source heavy in terms of that. She didn't just create characters. She immersed herself in source material. But the characters, the friendships that are the golden thread.
And it's not just Gaunt and Elwood, it's the boys around them. But obviously they're the key. And the way it begins is Gaunt is of German descent. His mother is German, and she urges him to go and fight because they're receiving a lot of very not nice treatment for being of German descent. So go and fight for the British. His best friend is the very sort of romantic poet Elwood, who then follows him to the front.
It's not a hard read in that it is not exceptionally violent. It is the most immersive, beautiful story that is just so moving.
Yeah.
And I cannot talk about this book highly enough. I am so delighted when anyone tells me that that's the book they bought.
It won the
because of us.
Waterstones debut of the year, didn't it?
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
And
It
got
should have
Maggie
won more.
It's got Maggie O'Farrell on the cover giving a blurb.
It's a special one.
it
It
is
is a really special book.
Absolutely beautiful. I mean, we could talk about it in depth more, but I actually don't want to give more away.
Yes.
I think that English countryside idyllic boarding school, and you see how these children, because that is for what they were. I mean, teens, children that were then just thrust into such tragedy, and there's a romance aspect. I mean, I cannot begin to tell you how much I
Yeah, I mean, I get
to me.
it's like you just don't want to say too much, but please read it if you haven't, and please let us know what you think, because we think it's one of the best books ever that we've read
And
together.
such a
Certainly,
and it's so beautifully written. It's so beautifully written. I think another author, just to kind of not to focus on one book, but to focus on an author for whom I think friendship is the key theme that every book has, you know, a massive, massive focus on, is Fredrik Backman.
yeah, absolutely.
I can see my friends there. I read Anxious People, A Man Called Ove. I mean, and it's, you know, that concept of strangers being thrust together and then...
Anxious People is also so funny. Like some
It's
books
so
don't
funny.
do humour that well, but that book is brilliantly hilarious in moments.
It's a heist gone wrong, kidnapping.
Yes, and it's the bringing together of a random group. I mean, My Friends, aptly titled, is, again, it's the concept of a group friendship from a very young age, and life is tough for the group and how they grow up. And one of them goes on to be an incredibly celebrated artist, but has many, many demons. And in fact, the book opens with one of his paintings on show, and a young woman has gone to the exhibition as one of these protesters to damage it. And it's just so brilliant as they make a connection. And then in turn, she learns about the group in the painting, who you don't even notice at first, but they're sitting on a pier. And that is his friendship group. And it's how his friendship group have essentially come together, split apart over life, and what they have learned. I mean, honestly, every page of this book, I mean, virtually had something that I wanted to be able to come back to. I read it while I was away with family on a trip, and I ignored everyone. I read it on a bus constantly, and it takes a lot for me to read like in motion, but I was like, this is just so good. I must read it. It's really, really special. I mean, look at this. I mean, this is just page 203. A backpack full of pills and a head full of demons. Hardly any child would survive that. The most dangerous place on earth is inside us.
Oh, how wonderful.
I mean, you just want it. But I mean, like, on every page, there's a something.
It's profound, but very, I don't want to say accessible, like that's disparaging.
No, it is. It is. And there are other books that this reminds me of, which we'll come to, like A Little Life in some ways, because it's this type of, you know, this tight friendship group. And the whole dynamic of the ins and outs of those many relationships that form the group. But this is much, much more accessible than A Little Life, which is
dense,
not for everybody.
and hard. I mean, we're not going to talk. Look at my copy. Can you see how beautiful that shines?
So battered.
Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is a book that Sophie has talked about ad nauseum, and I'm not allowing you to comment on it.
I'll say
but
nothing.
it would be remiss of us to say not to mention it, because I mean, if we don't mention this book in every episode, I'd be surprised. But it does have at its heart the most wondrous of friendships. But we now move on to the second category, which is the campus novel. Now, I mean, I've got Stoner here somewhere, which is obviously, I mean, a campus novel, but I mean,
Stoner is absolutely insanely brilliant and so underrated. I feel like a lot of people just haven't read or don't know. Really, no.
Do you think that's a UK thing? Because in America,
I don't know
the
if
American
it's a UK
novel.
thing, but I think it's a massively underrated novel. It's really stand out for me.
To corroborate what Sophie's position on Stoner, my cover has the greatest novel you've never read from the Sunday Times.
There you go.
But I think online I see a lot of people talk about Stoner, but I wonder if that's from American accounts because I think it is deeply American.
The thing about Stoner is that it gives a real insight into campus life, but it's predominantly from the perspective of the academic. Like when we're looking at campus novels, and we're looking at friendship, this one,
The Secret History
by Donna Tartt, has to be a standout. I mean, this is, I'd love to know how many copies this book has sold.
Millions.
Many millions. If you haven't read it, it's the story.
I'm almost jealous. Do you know that feeling of someone hasn't read a book you love? And I've got books for the people that have read The Secret History. So you talk about The Secret History, and I'm going to talk about the books that everyone has to read afterwards.
So this novel is told from the perspective of Richard. And he's looking back on his time at a liberal arts college, very, very elite. Again, he was kind of the outsider who's come from quite a difficult background, quite troubled. And the events in the book, I think, have happened. It's a long time that I read this, so forgive me. I think it's just over a year ago, and he's looking back from the present day. We know at the beginning, this isn't a spoiler, that there has been a death, and it's to do with the very, very elite classics group that Richard is initially not allowed to be part of, but becomes obsessed with becoming part of. So there's some incredible characters here. There's the professor, there's Bunny, there's Charles and Camilla, the twins. How funny, they're called Charles and Camilla. There's Francis, there's of course Richard himself. But I think there is a line in this book that I think so cleverly sums up friendship at this time in life. So I've written it down, and it says, I suppose, it's Richard speaking, I suppose there is a certain crucial interval in everyone's life when character is fixed forever. For me, it was that first full term I spent in Hampton. And isn't that interesting? Because there is a point where, do you ever wonder, like, when do you become you? When are you you? Yes, people can change, and that's a whole other debate whatsoever. But to think about your character fixing, and what I think is so fascinating about the friendships that we make at this point in our lives is actually, if you think back to uni, you are only showing people or revealing to people what you want to reveal. These are new people. They don't know that for the past 18 years you did X, Y, or Z, or who you dated, or what you were like in school. You can reinvent yourself. Also clear on Tell Me Lies. You can completely reinvent yourself and just offer the parts that you feel comfortable offering. And there's something really amazing about that.
And liberating. And I think that's the beauty of that campus novel, that we see people in that point of reinvention. We have to mention Heart the Lover there because, you know, they meet in, we love this book and it made me weep, and I really
This is another one sitting read. I read it on a plane. It was literally, it's quite
a
short.
Friendship that's, well, it's a
Friendship,
romance that
love
becomes
triangle.
but there is a friendship at the heart of it.
But it is that point that it's university,
and you're
the new you.
It's the first time that you're free to decide who you are and what you're going to do. Now, for anyone that has read The Secret History and was nodding along as Sophie talked about it and hasn't read these three books, boy, do I have a treat for you. So, Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo it's a bit more fantasy. Alex Stern is an unlikely member of Yale's freshman class. She's a dropout sole survivor of a horrific unsolved crime. And she's been tasked with monitoring Yale's secret societies. And now there's a dead girl on campus. And she looks at one of the societies who tamper with forbidden magic. It's very dark. It's brilliant. Quite dense prose. I absolutely inhaled it. We cannot talk about The Secret History without talking about If We Were Villains. In fact, on the cover it says, like Donna Tartt's A Secret History, a sparkling debut, it's richly led story of love, friendship, and obsession.
Is there like an elite group in this as well?
When friends become enemies. Oliver Marks has served 10 years for a murder he may or may not have committed. On the day of his release, he's greeted by the detective who put him in prison. As a young actor in an elite conservatory, you know,
and are the
it's just
characters
there.
really? I think for a lot of these books, it's the characters that really stand out, and it's how. I guess it's learning how and why they're friends, and how.
What connects them?
What connects them and maybe breaks them apart?
Yes, and my favourite, and that's hard to say because I love Ninth House and I am an absolute apostolate of If We Were Villains. I love that book, is Babel.
Oh,
by
yeah.
R.F. Kuang. Now, because we're talking about R.F. Kuang for a minute, I am also going to talk about Yellowface, which I did not tell you I was bringing. But if that's not a story...
You know I'm not a fan of Yellowface. I'm like one of the only people.
Yellowface.
Yeah, I know everybody loved Yellowface. I did not love it. I'm going to be honest. I didn't really like it, but I think I would like Babel, and I believe they're very different books.
They're very different. So Yellowface is the story of like friendship gone wrong. It's, do you know what I mean? Like two friends
totally.
and
like
one steals the work of the other
right.
one.
Actually, it's a brilliant example of like how we see friendship play out in fiction. Absolutely.
But Babel, Babel, I'm just going to rest my head and love it. This is actually a proof. I mean, honestly, an advanced reader copy that I got. And I didn't realise what I was getting at the time. It's got the most beautiful cover. It's the Board of Undergraduate Studies at the University of Oxford is pleased to offer you a place for admission at Babel. And the concept of Babel is so clever because R.F. Kuang is so hideously intelligent that it makes me feel sick. An act of translation is always an act of betrayal. That's the blurb. And it's Oxford 1836. And Babel is the Royal Institute of Translation because, of course, it is. Think about the biblical meaning
the
of
Tower of
Babel or Babel, and the tower from which all power of the empire flows. And there's a friendship, and there's students standing against the empire. But it took. I mean, it is a story about friendship, but a bit like If We Were Villains or The Secret History. There's so much more. I would say that Babel, the aspect that friendship looks at further is empire and language and the power of language. But then again, there is a group of friends and actually how this group that work on translations interact with one another and their loyalties, etc., are so fascinating. And as someone who is absolutely mesmerized by etymology and language and translation and the meaning of things, I enjoyed the characters and the friendships as much as I enjoyed the academic aspect of Babel. And I would say Babel
and you loved the academic aspect.
I really did.
Yeah, you did.
It's her latest, Ketabasis, is like reading a doctorate on philosophy. And I've struggled. I found it fascinating, but I also wanted to do a doctorate in philosophy as I was reading it. It's not a thriller, but it's got that thriller aspect, but it's got an academic sphere, and then it's got these friendships, and it's just beautiful. And I will stop talking about it because it's so amazing. But we also have to mention Bunny because we have to, and Brideshead Revisited, and Norwegian
I
Wood.
haven't read Brideshead Revisited.
Have you not?
No. I'm really rubbish at reading classics. I mean, after Wuthering Heights, I've needed a little break, but I don't know which one to read next, but I definitely want to read another one. But I need
Brideshead Revisited's quite a good one.
I feel like it's
Soph.
probably quite light. Is it like a light one?
No. I think this novella, Toni Morrison, is going to take your breath away, actually.
With an introduction by Zadie Smith, so that's good.
Zadie Smith.
But no, Bunny.
There's loads.
You love that.
I did like that. That felt more like Mean Girls meets The Craft.
Two standout films. Light as
The
a feather.
trash again.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Sophie, it surprises me so greatly that you are someone that loves all that stuff, and then I will talk about fantasy, and you're like, ugh.
Okay, it's for no. I gave
like I
it
talk
a
about
try.
romance, and you're like, ugh, and then you're like, tell me lies is all sex. Sorry.
But I said it before. I like to see it. And to take from that what you will.
Do you want to remind everyone that you said that? I'm so surprised that you want
we
to.
said that the other
Again,
time, though.
you
Oh,
did.
God, I keep reiterating the same point. Yes, Bunny, Brideshead Revisited. I mean, another one. We've touched on A Little Life, but that is surely the pinnacle.
Go on,
of
I'm going to bring my
I don't
copy
have my
here.
copy.
Do you
I don't want
not?
to talk about it. I don't know where it is.
What?
I haven't had a copy for a while, and I'm not saying yours is yours.
No, I know mine is mine.
I had a hardback, which I think, I don't know, I need to dig around.
Won so
but
many
I think
awards.
that book, if you're talking about red flags, ride or dies, I mean, the ultimate ride or die friendship must be Jude and Willem in this book. Like, proper ride or die. I mean, they are everything.
I think if anyone hasn't read A Little Life, Hanya Yanagihara, I mean, there was a lot of performative videos of people sobbing. We've talked about A Little Life.
Yeah,
because
we have.
I just think,
but not in the friendship context. More in terms of how the book went viral
and how emotive it is and what a gut punch. I mean, people call it trauma porn.
Yeah, but the friendships I think the friendships are what keep you going.
Really?
Yes, because actually, I think for a lot of people, this is, well, we've talked about it, the trigger warnings, there is so much in here that is so very, very hard to read. But actually, in many ways, a lot of the characters, they are saved to a degree because of their friendships. That group is magic.
And it's seared on your
Malcolm,
mind.
Willem, I can't, like Jude. It's just, and then I think actually, when you really think about it, and this is going to sound incredibly cheesy, so do forgive me, but when you finish some of these very, very best books about friendship with friendships at their heart, do you not, and I'm going to sound like a total dweeb, but do you not, I do, but like, do you not think that you come away and you think, those characters are my friends?
Oh,
They
of
are my
course.
friends. I have made friends. Like, obviously, I'm not going to be like, oh, Willem, can we go out to the pub? Obviously not. But I'm saying you keep them with you as a friend. Like that. And that's what they become. And that's why these novels must be some of the best, because I can pick out so many characters from these books that like stay with me as my friends.
I actually think, I don't think you sound like a dweeb, lol.
Well, I do anyway. A dweeb.
Like Tom Cromwell, yeah, that's my boy. Okay, I'm not joking. Of course, these people are your friends, and I actually think that's why, with books that accrue cult status, the authors get so much of that because people feel connected to them through their characters, and they're like, "You must be my friend because I'm obsessed with your."
And you made that. You
with
made
your
them.
people, with your children.
Your people became my people. They are my people.
Your narrative voice is one that has kept with me for so. Listen, why do we think people are obsessed with Taylor Swift? Because they listen to her music again and again and again. They're like, I know you. I know how you're feeling. You would understand me, right? It's the same with books.
Hard relate. Like,
And okay, if we think about another book that we absolutely loved, and I know that we've now spoken for quite a while about friendship and the books that we've loved, and there's so many around us that we haven't
but we're only
mentioned.
doing a service because I reckon some of these books are like the best selections ever. Like really,
Oh
I do.
my
If
God,
I may
they
say so
are.
myself.
A book that I felt bereft without. It was our first author interview. And when we met Sarah Winman to talk to her about A Still Life, I felt like I was meeting a friend.
Yeah.
Why? Because I had spent 2 glorious days, because I read this book in 2 days, with her characters.
Do you remember I was with David and it was our wedding anniversary
didn't speak to
weekend
him.
and I didn't talk to him?
If anyone hasn't read A Still Life, my 2 I mean, I love every single book that we are talking about. I mean, I haven't even mentioned Silence of the Girls with Pat Barker, which I
It'll
would
come.
die for. But Still Life is magnificent.
It's beyond immersive, that book.
Oh, okay. I mean, look at this. This book saved my soul. I mean, that's what's
That
on the
could have
front
been
cover by a
us,
reader.
really.
It's set in it's 1944, ruined wine cellar of a Tuscan villa, as the Allied troops advance, bombs falling around them.
And you are there.
2 strangers meet and share an extraordinary evening together, a young British soldier and a one-time globe maker, an art historian and possible spy. She's come to Italy to salvage paintings from the ruins. So it's an unlikely friendship. These 2 unlikely people then find kindred spirits in each other. You move from the Tuscan hills to the piazzas of Florence to the smog of London's East End. I mean, one of our book club picks for this month is Chosen Family, and I think Still Life encapsulates that concept of the family that we choose for ourselves.
The found family.
I mean, Still Life is so picturesque and so beautiful about those moments of connection and the friendships that last forever and the sense of community that you get and the Italians that shouting at each other about breakfast. Sarah Winman is someone that I would do anything for, wouldn't you? Because these are my friends. I'm holding a book with a group of my friends.
Yeah.
I think about them all the time.
We're just waiting for the next one.
That is breaking news, by the way, that she's working on book 2.
I'm waiting for it.
She is working on it.
Yes, you told me that.
Please read this. It's not dense prose. It's very moving. It's not gratuitous. It is not. It's literary fiction. It's highbrow, but it's. I mean, you dive into it and you're just taken.
It really is. It's interesting you mentioned the point about family because
I'm just going to hug it.
yeah, you hug it. So this book, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay is actually about two cousins who become the closest of friends. Now, funnily enough, I think I swiped a copy of this off the shelf in HarperCollins when I used to work there, but I was allowed to. It wasn't actual theft. But I read it, and I mean, the print, look at that. I mean, it's small.
Oh God, that's my nightmare,
It's
Sophie,
small,
I'm sorry.
and it's it's like
You made me read
650
this.
pages.
You made me.
And
I did read it.
Yeah.
Don't I get any applause for that?
And you loved it, right?
I did. It took me time to get into, and their friendship is beautiful. But why do we have to read books with such small text?
No, I mean,
should that be my next rant?
Yes, that could be your next rant.
I hate a book with tiny text.
I didn't mind it because I think this is possibly one of the most fantastic portrayals of male friendship. So, in a book, essentially it's Joseph Cavalier and his cousin Samuel Clay, and Joseph is smuggled over from Prague into New York to escape the horrors affecting his Jewish family at the time of the Second World War. He gets to New York, and the two of them they form this friendship and ultimately creative partnership in creating a comic book character called the Escapist. And the idea is the Escapist is this like Nazi busting superhero. But the whole time, what Joseph really wants to do is save his family in Prague. And I must say, though you may be put off by the small text, I'll have you know that my dad loves to read, but always read nonfiction. And I implored him to read this book. And this book actually got him back into novels. After this, he started reading loads of fiction because he was so blown away by the magic of this story. And I think actually, I mean, I don't know if it's that there are probably more novels about female friendship. I think, obviously the Neapolitan novels are incredible, spanning that relationship between Lila and Lenny over their whole life. There's the 4-book series, which I read and adored like most people did. But male friendship, I don't know. And I think this is a really, really superb one. I mean, it's in Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow as well. But I won't go back to that book.
No, but you loved this book.
I absolutely loved it.
It's quite highbrow though. It is, Soph. It's not. So I'm sorry. Still Life is an easier read.
Of course, it is an easier read. But I'm saying, if you this one is absolutely worth a try.
In Memoriam is also about friendship, male friendships.
Yes, but there is also a love affair in that relationship as well. This is family, friendship, comics, and a lot of history as well.
A lot of history. It is beautiful. Silence of the Girls, for any of our historical fiction fans, is so important. Pat Barker is such an important author, and this is about the women behind the tale of the besieging of the city of Troy. We matched.
I know. This was the first ever of those Greek retellings that I read. I read this before any of the Madeline Millers. This was the one.
But I mean, Pat Barker is just such an astonishing writer. The strength of her prose. She looks at the women that are a footnote in a bloody story scripted by vengeful men, and their friendships, I think, are at the heart. And I don't think anyone would think about the friendships. They just see it as a historical retelling. But for me, it is about the friendships. And I promised a fantasy, and then we will stop. But The Sword Catcher by Cassandra Clare of Shadowhunter fame. I'm just going to show her on my tabs.
Love her.
I interviewed her for Waterstones with. There were like 700 people waiting for her to sign their books. I'm not even joking. That's not an exaggeration. But The Sword Catcher is very, very, very immersive fantasy, mythological folklore, and there are friendships at the heart of it. I am the prince's shield. I am his unbreakable armor. I bleed that he might not bleed. I suffer that he might not suffer. I die that he might live forever, but you will not die. It's so, so clever, and it's so brilliant. And it's not fantastical in that there's magic, but it's very. It almost reminds me a bit of Game of Thrones, that political intrigue and destiny.
Is there a series, or is it just there's always a series? How many in that bloody series?
There's
two. Oh, that's not even a series. That's not even a series.
How dare you?
We actually asked on Instagram about what books about friendship, what had stood out for you. Still Life came up
Yes,
loads.
reverberated everywhere.
As did Owen Meany. Won't talk about that. Have talked about Owen Meany a lot. My Friends, Fredrik Backman. My Sister's Keeper. That was another one we didn't mention. The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. A book called Lost Souls Meet Under a Full Moon. I actually hadn't heard of that. I was quite intrigued. The Women by Kristen Hanna.
We've spoken about that. We love The Women.
And a book called Expectation. So, I mean, there are a lot of books out there that have friendship at its heart. But I think, the important thing about these novels about friendship is that actually you can take so much from them. It's not just about, I know we've said the characters becoming our friends, but there's a lot you can learn about.
Absolutely.
From that.
And that brings me to the last book, which is a non-fiction, because we always like to ensure that there's a non-fiction. And this is by Elizabeth Day, friend of the pod, Confessions of a Friendship Addict. And this is...
Friendaholic.
It unpacks the significance and evolution of friendship, from ghosting and frenemies to social media and seismic life events. Elizabeth looks at why there isn't a language that can express the crucial influence of friendship on our world. And I think this is a beautiful read. It's very interestingly organised.
Well, I love that she's actually got chapters about her own friends. Clemmy, Satnam.
Charmaine, who's in publishing that we know. She's so lovely. And I think she looks very, very movingly at friendship, particularly because her story is about... and I think she talks a lot about being unable to have children and the importance that friends have played in her life as that chosen family. And I think for anyone that's looking for a non-fiction that explores the evolution of friendship,
that you can dip in and dip out of.
And particularly in such a contemporary sphere, this is a great one to look at. And we hope you're enjoying Chosen Family by Madeline Gray, which I think...
Well, it very much has friendship at its heart.
And I cannot wait to talk about it in more detail. And I've also got a great recommendation for the book club, which I'm not going to say now, for anyone who loved Chosen Family.
Amazing. Well, we'll make sure to share that.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. And hopefully you'll come away from this episode maybe appreciating your own friendships a little bit more.
And if anyone could do me a favour, if you have enjoyed Tell Me Lies, this is my public call. Please can you message Sophie on the Bibliophils on Instagram so she can talk about it with someone that's watched it, because I don't have time.
This isn't higher.
I don't have time to watch it, okay?
And do agree, you are missing out. You are missing out.
I don't want to watch it, Soph. I've got enough books with stuff that I don't need to watch. All right, love?
Okay, let's see.
Please message her.
Let's see.
She's so insufferable.
I await your messages eagerly. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for joining us, and look forward to catching up next time.